Bring your family together with a backyard game court from Sport Court of Austin. Moms love Sport Court because it's an active and safe place for the kids to gather. Dads love Sport Court because he gets to play like a kid again. Kids love Sport Court because all kids love to play. So give your kids a safe place to hang out and have fun. Call 512-335-9779 or go to sportcourtofaustin.com for more information. If you build it, they will play.
Back to the Parent Portal Show. Stephen Knoll, Coach Gumbert this morning. Hey, we're going to jump into, Coach, at this point. I think it's great to talk about the Dillon Gabriel transfer portal example. Very interesting story behind all that, and I thought it would be worth just kind of talking through it. One of the things I think is interesting about Dillon, I didn't know this until I started doing some of the research. He came from UCF over to Oklahoma, certainly followed coaches over to OU, and there was a real commitment to being there. He had a fairly decent year. He's a 6-year senior next year, so there was a chance for him to go NFL. He decided to look at playing and going into the transfer portal, and he ended up at Oregon. Now, that's an interesting question because he was the starting quarterback. I don't feel like there was that much pressure on him to win out or beat the next player. But one of the things, the backup quarterback, one of the things that happened is one of the coaches, his offensive coordinator coach, was leaving OU. And that is something that people pointed to and said, this is probably one of the reasons that he felt like he wanted to explore other opportunities. He did talk about doing his homework, finding out that he was not going to grade out that well in the NFL draft, and he didn't get invited to the Reese's bowl game, Senior Bowl, and that's a pretty big hit right there. That kind of is a signal that you're not everything you thought you would, because normally if you were going to go into the NFL, you probably would have been invited to play in that.
Yeah, that's it's not the exception anymore. I mean, we only need to look at Coach Prime coming from Jackson State last year, and who did he bring? Brought his son with him. Yeah. Starting quarterback. He said we got our quarterback before he even stepped on the campus.
Yeah,
and it is those types of moves that athletes are seeing and saying, "Hey, we can do this." I mean, look at the coach for Tulane, who just had a bowl yesterday,
yeah.
And he's moved on, and he's going. The coach is going to, I believe, Houston, and look how many people are in the transfer portal from Tulane, and I'm going to bet that a handful of them wind up wearing and cheering for the Cougars next year. It's for coaches. There's a sense of like the culture that they're bringing when they do that.
Yeah.
And how they want things done, because these athletes are going to be able to help them, work with the new ones that they're going to be coaching. And for the athlete, there's a sense of like maybe the word job security could be used. And, you're looking at it from that standpoint of like, I've got the coach in there cheering for me and helping me with everything from NIL to, playing time. So it can be a very smart, shrewd move, for the young athlete that is looking to, not be stuck. That's not the right word. Not be in a new system where they have to learn everything.
Right.
You're coming into a whole new system where you have to start over, as opposed to you're starting over, but you're starting with the same teacher.
Yeah, you're starting in a new environment, but you've got someone that you've learned what their expectations are and how they work, and ironically, that's kind of the same thing from 8th grade up into 9th grade, or whatever transition you go through from the middle school into the high school years. Even the teams that do run some of the similar game plays into the next year or carry up into the high school programs. It's still new expectations, new ways of doing things. I know my youngest boy had the hardest time transitioning, and there was just a new way of doing it, and it was more geared toward another middle school program, not his own. And that made it difficult on him. It really did, and he had to kind of figure it out a little bit. And that makes sense, and that's why quarterbacks, and if anyone who's got to learn it, it's the quarterbacks. They're the ones that are a little bit at a disadvantage because of that.
Yeah, it's for the young developing athlete. The one thing that they crave is just structure
Yeah,
and consistency. It's a formative time in their lives where repetitions are everything. And you start changing the way you say something, and then all of a sudden you start changing the way you might do a system, and it can be a lot for a young athlete. They've got a plan for A, but they may not have a plan for B and beyond.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you, Coach. I mean, so obviously he's leaving and he's going to Oregon. Now, here's the deal: how does that impact the sale of merch? How do you think the NIL underwriters, the NIL brands that were at Oklahoma, are they going to carry? It'd be interesting to see what the contract says. I don't think it'd be interesting. I'd love to see how the NIL contract carries. Do you end up taking that to Oregon? Maybe not, because Oregon's got to buy in on the addition of that brand into their portfolio, or the use of the brand there. So there might be some questions and issues around that. But hey, I'm looking right now, a Dillon Gabriel superstar shirt, OU shirt is normally $22. I can get you a good deal for $16 today. Now, some of the other ones are still out there. That was the one with his name and his face on it. But most of them are, they're going to be branded Dillon Gabriel. So I don't know. How does that work?
Yeah, it's going to be an ongoing question. In the NFL, everybody has the Aaron Rodgers jersey from Green Bay, and now all of a sudden he's doing the Jets. And it's like, well, I've got the original rookie jersey.
Right,
That
collector's
might be
item.
that. I don't know if a Dillon Gabriel original Oklahoma jersey is going to be the same as a Oregon Duck jersey, down the line,
Or the UCF jersey, right? He's got,
or the UCF jersey,
yeah,
right?
or
You
collect all
just don't
three.
know. Yeah, right.
You never know. Those will be fun to figure out. And, it's another challenge for brands. Not that the brands can't afford to make changes and move to other athletes, but it is a challenge in NIL to figure out how this contract works out. And with all the chaos, I mean, with so many kids, what did I say? 2,728 athletes went into the into the portal this year. That's a lot of players, and 1,696 of them committed to another team or committed to a team. I don't know what stat that is as far as going back to their same team. I'm going to say that's a transfer, and then 50 of them withdrew. So those are interesting stats, and that's a lot of change that goes on. Brands don't like change. They like to keep things nice and stable, nice and calm, not a lot of chaos. But the NCAA's got a lot of changes going on right now.
Yeah, the thing that I would just kind of like say that is just incredible to watch is the sheer number of transfers now as opposed to last year. It's if we could look at those numbers, I've got to believe they're at least a third more this year than there were last year. And
Yeah.
if that's the case, then we're looking at something that is not just a NIL phenomenon. This is like a the free agency phenomenon in college sports, because now you're looking at something where, you know, uh, they're ranking classes by the transfers, not by, well, he's got this 5-star from out of Houston. It's not that. You're ranking classes by, hey, this was a 3-year starter
Yeah,
at
quality.
Oklahoma, and
Yeah,
now, yeah, and so the classes are, it's the evaluation of a class of an athlete is a totally different description than it was 2 years ago, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's, yeah, and I mean, it's, you look for that team. Texas Tech comes to mind. They've got a lot of good recruiting that happened in the high school Texas ranks, but they have got a tremendous amount of portal movement happening,
Yeah,
and as a result, their class, if you were just to rank it on, you know, NIL or not NIL, just signing day athletes, it's modest. But
yeah,
now you throw in that other component of the transfer portal, and man, you've got a top 20 team there.
yeah. Well, and it works both ways. And I just saw recently one of the teams listed, I think it's Oregon, was listed as a top transfer portal team. And they were bringing in 7, 8 kind of new players that were pretty studly, but they lost 20. So, unless a bunch of those kids were all bench players or, not going to add to the bottom line, it's challenging for me to think of that as a top tier recruiting transfer portal program. It makes it a little more befuddling on how they're measuring these things. And at the end of the day, what a class grades out to in transfers or recruitment, we all know that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the results are going to be. I mean, hey, University of Texas had plenty of years of stellar recruiting classes that did not perform up to expectations.
Well, it's again, for me, it's another step towards professionalism of college sport. It really is, because you're
Hmm.
looking at these athletes that are these teams, bigger D1, Power 3, Power 4 teams that are looking in the transfer portal, not for their number 2, their number 3 at offensive tackle. They're looking at skill set positions, defensive
Yeah,
edge. They're looking at quarterbacks. They're looking at maybe that star receiver. And then they're relying on their ability to recruit, those 5-star, 4-star linemen and deep snappers. And I think that wasn't the way it was before. And it's another step towards professionalism, because, these athletes are, those skill set positions are becoming sought after for NIL deals. And it's the professionalism of college sports, in my opinion.
it's money, coach. It's about the money, which is
Follow
a
the money and see where it goes.
follow the money, which is a quote, and that transitions us right into a top 10 list. So one of the things that I thought would be fun for us to do is kind of the end of the year, getting into the start of the year, is a top 10 list in the nature of what David Letterman used to do. I came up with a top 10 list for our parent portal show community, quotes to live and play by. So bear with me as I try to pull this off. We'll see how well it goes. But starting with number 10, and this is either you've said it, I've said it, or we've just either enjoyed it or it was worthy of making the list. So here we go. Number 10, quit finding excuses. Number 9, come on, coach. Number 8, you may just be a little overwhelmed today. Number 7, looks like the courts will need to settle this issue. Heard that a few times. Number 6, is Charlie Baker out of his mind? Number 5, is the NCAA out of their minds? Number 4, yes, Charlie Baker and the NCAA are out of their minds. Number 3, designing X and O's on the field and off the field. Number 2, you can make mistakes, but you can have some fun with it also. And number 1, my drum roll. Brrr. All right, number 1 quote for the day: you can be tired, but you cannot be tired. Woo! It's all fun. We're getting it all prepped for going into 2024. So, Coach, yeah, that was my top 10 list. I thought you might find that pretty fun and pretty interesting.
It's coach speak in so many ways, right? We say the same things over and over in hopes that the audience hears some of these things that just happen right in front of us.
Yeah.
And we want, with the repetition, we want the parents and the athletes at home to understand that this is something that you need to pay attention to, and that we try to find different words sometimes to describe the same thing because of the importance of it. It's as a young athlete, as a parent of an athlete, you're in that space of just a lot of times just guessing. And when you hear that constant message, there's a reason. And some of those things that you said, they're so true. I mean, some of it's sarcasm, but it just defines how crazy this part of your kid's life is and going to be in the future. And it's I when I coached, there were certain things that I would say over and over and over again, and this top 10 list reminds me of that a lot, and brings a smile and a little bit of eye roll to me. But it's it's true. It's true for a reason, because it's just that crazy.
Yeah. Well, and yes, and it's there's that nugget of truth there. My favorite one obviously is the last one: you can be tired, but you cannot be tired, which, by the way, was handed to us by Lois Detman when we had that wonderful interview with her this year. So,
Yep.
Hey, going into 2024, I bet we'll have a lot of new lists to work with. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun coming up with that list, and absolutely recognizing that there's some value in what we're doing, and what we're trying to some of that wisdom that we're trying to share, from speaking from experience, and certainly speaking from the energy that we put into doing the research. With that said, Coach, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the ball game today that's going on. Boston College and SMU in their playing. I actually was able to get an update on it. Last time this may be a little bit behind, but it was 14-10. SMU had gone up on Boston College. This is such a great time of year. There's so many ball games. I mean, we're talking midday, and yet, some of these smaller bowls, some of the bowls that aren't at the tier 1 level, are still great bowl games. Watching these kids at SMU and Boston College play, and they're playing their hearts out, which I just love about the game. And it's cold and wet in Fenway Park, and yet they're having a great time.
Yeah, this season is different for me in the bowl season, and it's really because of the opt-outs and the transfers, and the players that are moving from place to place. It's different. And I mean, I watched the North Carolina game last night.
Yep.
And Mac Brown was very, very clear. I mean, half of his offense and defense were gone, and the same with the Aggies last night. Half of their defense was different than what it started with this year, and that's a different feeling when bowls used to be played, where it was all about that last moment to be able to be with your teammates and be with your friends and everything else. And the business side of this has kind of changed that.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think Coach Brown said it right. Was this is not the whatever Duke Mayo bowl. This is a opportunity bowl.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's a unique way of looking at this. For the nostalgia in me, I kind of miss the old days, but the other side of me looks at this and says it is an opportunity. When someone moves on, it's an opportunity for somebody to move up, and it's really um, fun to watch that side of it. If you look at it, I mean, last night there were players that have taken 1, 2, 3 snaps in their whole college career, and they were starting, and it
Yeah.
was it is an opportunity bowl for some of these guys.
Well, you had two new starters for USC-Louisville game last night, and perfect example, right? So Caleb Williams says, hey, I'm not going to play. He hasn't told anyone he's going into the NFL yet, but everyone expects it. Everyone expects him to be the number one draft pick. Or a lot of people expect him to be the number one draft pick. But now all of a sudden you have kids stepping up. I listened to the announcers a lot last night talk about because they're trying to come up with some of the, why this game is still important. Why you still, Mr. Guy on the couch, want to watch this game? Because, at times it does seem like it's a little chaotic with some of the new kids that are on the field, starting quarterbacks who've never started or I think both the quarterbacks for USC and Louisville had never started a game. So you're watching that. But I think Mac Brown's got it right. It's really, this is what next year, this is prepping for next year. This is what you're going to see going into next year. And I think Miller Moss is a great example. Here's a kid who had only had a couple of times in a game at all. He steps up, he starts the game. It is an amazing game. He's able to throw and 6 touchdowns. He went 23 for 33, 372 yards, and he had an interception. The kid was in the portal. Coach had said, "Hey, we're not sure what we're going to do yet, but we'd love for Moss to start and see what he looks like." And oh my gosh, you don't think that USC is going to be more than happy to offer that kid an opportunity to stay at USC. I'd be very surprised if or Miller Moss, I'm sorry, that's a strange name anyway, but Miller Moss is going to move on. I think he's kind of found his niche and his spot, and there's no better way for him to continue playing than playing right there at USC.
Yeah, he's a good example of like taking advantage of the moment. He obviously was trying out for next year because right now Lincoln Riley's in that space of like going, well, do we go portal? They probably have recruited, somebody out of high school that is going to be the next up and coming athlete, but they've already USC has already shown that you give us a quarterback, we can give you performance in this kind of moment. And I bet a lot of questions were answered last night, and I said it earlier. It's just a great example of somebody taking advantage of that moment that they get to do something great, and it's the people that got to witness that were watching USC's future. Period.
Yeah, fun game to watch, and I thought it was very interesting to see Cliff Kingsbury on the sideline and in a role of consulting. I mean, gosh, as a quarterback, yeah,
Consultant.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
as a quarterback, who wouldn't want Lincoln Riley and Cliff Kingsbury as your kind of mentors and guidance on, hey, what do you need to be doing? So loved it. It was a great game last night, no doubt about it.
For nearly 50 years, Town and Country Sports has been the heartbeat of youth sports in North Austin, promoting fair play, sportsmanship, and most importantly, fun. TNC Sports is for kids of all ages, no matter the skill level, and we encourage the whole family to get involved. Right now, registration is open for soccer, flag football, baseball, girls volleyball, softball, lacrosse, and more. Space is limited. Don't wait. Sign up today at tncsports.org. TNC Sports. Come play with us.